So today we've got Spencer Powell from Builder Funnel. He's going to be talking about the ROI Unboxed, the science behind evaluating and investing in marketing. Super excited to have you talking about this today. Definitely a very timely topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. I'm super excited to be here.
Absolutely. So a couple housekeeping things real quick. If you're not part of the JobTread Pros Facebook group, definitely be sure to reach out and join that. Really awesome community. Lots of helpful advice from people on JobTread, business related stuff, whatever you need to help build a successful business. We're happy to have those discussions in the JobTread Pros Facebook group. We've also got the Builder Stories, my podcast. So every Wednesday we put out a new episode. Highly suggest you tune into some of those. Listen, we've got it organized on builderstories.com where you can actually filter down to like just your industry, or you can listen to them all. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, kind of wherever you like to listen to your podcast. Definitely check that out. And want to also remind people about the JobTread Beginner Boot Camp. So we've got, looks like the next one is coming up at the end of June, June 26th and 27th. And then after that, we'll have one in July. So definitely check those out. It's a great way for all of our new JobTread users to get all the basics, 2 days in person, in our office. We help you learn everything to get started, to go from zero to hero as quickly as possible with JobTread. And also want to remind everyone about JobTread Connect. We have officially secured the date. We've announced the location, the time, everything. That's going to be January 14th to the 16th. So you can grab your tickets today. Those are available in the JobTread Marketplace. You can also go to jobtreadconnect.com and learn more about the event. We would love to see everyone there. We do anticipate the event selling out just like it did last year. So you do want to get your tickets early. If you're bringing multiple people on your team, you also want to get those, and then also secure your hotel and any of your travel related stuff, because we will sell out the hotel as well. There's a couple others in the area, but definitely the sooner you can get on that, the better. And yeah, without any further ado, I want to turn it over to Spencer here, who is going to be talking to us about marketing.
Cool. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, and just a little bit of background on us. My company, Builder Funnel, started this about 15 years ago, and we have been solely focused on the remodeling building space for almost the duration of that 15 years. Um, I would say if you are looking for marketing help, we're good at building marketing systems. So that includes a website, a strategy plan, and then a pretty holistic approach across your digital channels. That's going to be SEO, content, social media, paid ads, email marketing. And we tend not to just focus on one tactic and look at the holistic strategy. All right. So let's talk about ROI. And I'm really excited to walk you through the numbers behind marketing and kind of how to evaluate really where you should be putting your dollars and how to make them work really hard for you. I think I think there's kind of a big mystery box around marketing, and especially in this industry when it's one where this industry prides itself on word of mouth and referrals, which are incredible and amazing to get. But then you typically hit a plateau. And so we want to be able to learn how to use marketing strategy to be able to drive our business forward and hit those growth goals. So um, anytime I sign on to a webinar, I think, one of the first questions is always like, hey, why do I want to be here? Why should I listen? What am I going to get out of this? Um, my first client, we started when they were about 2 million. They're a remodeler and a custom builder. They had me come on board to work on their digital marketing, and we were a big part of helping them scale up from 2 million to 10 million over about a 4-year time span. And since then, we've been able to generate about $200 million across our client base since we started. We've also doubled our business every 3 years since we started, so we're at about 4.5 doubles now. If you're in your business and you're saying, "Hey, I want to, go from 2 to 4 million or 4 to 8 million," and you like that double, if you hit 25% growth every year, that'll get you a double in 3 years. So some people are trying to scale up a lot more aggressively. Some people are comfortable with just trying to push forward by a little bit. I found that like 25% doubling every 3 years. You definitely have to get a lot of things right to do it, but it has felt like something that has been also sustainable over the long haul. And to date, we're about, over 30 people full-time, based in the States here, and we've needed to scale up that team. So that's my experience in my past, basically starting this company right out of college and building it up over the next 15 years. But there are some problems with making your marketing effective. And so maybe some of these sound familiar, or you've bumped into these in the past. But feel free to chime in the chat or raise your hand. But if you ever feel like, hey, I'm just wasting money on marketing. I know I've wasted a ton of money on marketing, and I try as best I can to look at that as not true waste, but like, what did I learn from this? In marketing, there's a lot of testing, so you're just going to spend some money that out of that test, you learn something, and then you can take it to the next test until you find something that is working and is repeatable. Um, but sometimes you're literally just burning money. I talked to a remodeler who was spending about 2 grand a month on Google Ads, but the agency was just pocketing the money, and we were able to diagnose that because we could look at their traffic, and you could go into Google Analytics and you could see from paid advertising on Google, there's no traffic coming in. So made you think, well, where's the money going if it's not going towards click costs? So there are instances where money ends up just literally getting burned. Um, we obviously want to see that money directed at productive activity. Like one of our clients, using Google Ads, we spent about 15 grand, just shy of it. And that led to 2 kitchen projects. One was 208,000, one was 350,000. This is the kind of like metrics that we're looking for. Hey, I spent X on this marketing channel and it returned back Y, and then you can evaluate it. Obviously, with the agency that was just pocketing the cash, there's not a lot that you can do there. Or maybe you don't know what's working because you're not able to track and report on your existing marketing. Another local remodeler I was speaking to, spending about 80 grand a year on marketing, but they weren't sure which channels were bringing in the leads. And so there is kind of a very old adage that's, hey, I know half of my marketing is working and producing the results. I just don't know which half. We want to get away from that as much as possible. And with today's tracking and tools and technology, you can get really granular in terms of knowing exactly what is driving revenue for you and what's not driving revenue. And so we want to get to a spot where we can see a picture like this, where this is an outdoor remodeler that we work with, and over the course of a 12-month span, we could see, okay, from organic search, meaning Google search, we were able to track back 3.397 million to that channel. And then over here on paid search, we could see, just over 1.3 million came through that channel. Then you can look at, time, dollars expended for each of those channels, and you can make some really good decisions moving forward. Or maybe you've been burned in the past by an agency or a freelance marketer. This custom builder that I was talking to, basically spending $1,000 a month on SEO services, which is not super uncommon. But all they're doing is basically just like sending a report every month. And you could dig into the site and you can see there's no activity being done. And so we want to avoid these situations. We want to be able to look, hey, if I'm investing in this channel, hey, I'm seeing this increase in keyword rankings over time. Hey, I'm getting this much traffic from my organic search. Or maybe this one, and this is one we're going to really dig into today, which is you can't scale your marketing profitably. And I was speaking to outdoor remodeler Ryan, and we were talking about what it costs him to basically, how much does it cost him to acquire a customer? And so we were digging into those numbers and then what a customer is worth to him. And he didn't know. He didn't know some of the answers. And so it was really difficult for him to make a decision around, hey, should I increase my spend? Should I keep it where it is? Should I decrease it? Because he didn't have a grasp on these things. And so again, we're gonna dive into this today, but does any of this sound familiar? And if it does, feel free to chime into the chat here. But let's keep going. Sorry, Eric, can you still see my screen okay? I feel like
Yeah.
something happened here. Okay.
Sounds familiar is what it says.
Okay, great. Sorry, guys. I don't know where my screen went. Hold on. All right.
There you are.
We good, Eric, on your end?
Yep.
Cool. So the question becomes, hey, what would it look like if I could measure the quantity and the quality of my marketing? And so if you could see, hey, I got 50 leads this month from 5 different channels, but 2 of those channels are leading to all my meetings, right? Or a significant portion of my meetings. It'd be a lot easier to make those decisions. Um, or if you knew exactly where your best customers are coming from, because sometimes it's not only about volume of customer, right? A lot of folks that we work with are really interested in getting a very specific type of project and clientele. They want to do projects that are, north of $150,000, or they only want to do additions that are, $500,000 plus. Well, if you could see that maybe the top 20% of your customers were coming from one channel and you had a really strong lifetime value versus cost to acquire, maybe like 10 to 1, then you would say, well, great, this is awesome. And again, we're going to get to this ratio and we're going to break down these numbers in the presentation so that you guys can run these numbers for yourselves and see where you're at. But the question is, do you think you can invest more confidently? And obviously the answer is yes. Like if you have really good data and you can see, oh, all my customers are coming from this channel, like let's just do more of that. And we want to make this as simple as possible because there are so many moving parts with, especially with digital marketing today. Marketing can feel very overwhelming. What do I do? Where do I focus on? And so what we want to do is try to simplify it as much as we can so we know where to pour our limited budget and our limited time and attention. And so to solve that, we need a system. And so that system is going to include technology and then reporting and the analysis. And so we're going to break this down. And so the technology, you need HubSpot or something similar. HubSpot is just an example. You can plug in any number of, hundreds of different software programs. But the key is you need to have a software and tracking system on your website that will tell you exactly where your leads and your customers are coming from and breaking that down by digital channel. And so if you're listening to this, like throw up a yes if you can currently see exactly where your customers are coming from. And so you could tell like the difference between a customer that came from like a Google organic search versus a Google paid ad versus social media or maybe a social media ad. If you can see the exact channel that your customers are coming from, just yes if you can, no if you can't. And if you currently cannot, then I can't emphasize it enough that this is the first thing that you need to get in place. And so what we want to see is we want to be able to track traffic to leads, to meetings, and then to customers. And so again, I'm going to use HubSpot as the example. We've been using this system for 15 years. There are other tools and tech that will provide this for you. But you should be able to break it down this granular. So you can see like paid search, how many visitors, which are sessions that you got to the site. New contacts are people that are filling out forms on your website. Basically, we call those leads. We don't know if they're qualified or unqualified yet. And then you can see customers. And then when you go click on that, say 16 customers from paid search, then you'll be able to see, oh, okay, I got these 16 customers, and this one was 100,000, this was 150, this was 80,000, this was 200, and we can see the actual revenue associated with that channel. Then you can go back and say, well, how much did we spend on that channel? And that's how you can start to measure this. So this is what you want to be able to see and what you want to be able to track from end to end, basically from click to closed customer. And so that allows you to break down your customers by source and then your leads and meetings by source. We're in an industry where the sales cycle can be pretty long, and the marketing cycle in terms of like, hey, I want to do this home project. Like for us, my wife and I have been thinking about finishing our basement, and we've also been thinking about this for 4 years since we bought the home and it had an unfinished basement. So you could pretty much look at that 4 year time span as like, we're interested in doing this project in the future, but we're definitely not at the point in time where we're ready to hire a company. But we're doing a little bit of research here and there. And then we will hit this window where we will do heavier research because we'll say, hey, this is the year we're ready. You know, the kids are, you know, the right age. We wanted to finish it. We've been planning for this for a while. Now we're going to do more research to figure out like, hey, how much is it really actually going to cost? How long is this going to take? What companies can we find to do this? And just that part alone could be months of research. And then we're going to connect with a company, and then that sales cycle will be a few months. And so as you're getting a marketing program up and running, or as you're doing regular marketing activity, sometimes you can't see customers right away, but you will see leads and you will see meetings. And so if you get somebody on the phone, they come in, you're like, this is a great opportunity, and you book a meeting, we would call that sales qualified because marketing produced it and then sales said, yes, this is the right type of opportunity. We want to see, where did this person come from? And that can be a leading indicator that you can look at a little bit higher up in the funnel to see like, oh, this came from Google search or a Google ad or a social media ad. And that can give you the confidence to keep spending or increase your spending in a certain channel. And so once you have this in place, the analysis is usually really, really simple. It's, hey, where are the most customers coming from? Where are the most meetings coming from? And can I do more of those, right? Can I do more of those things that are working the best? It sounds simple, and it is simple, but the key is you have to have the tracking system in place. Otherwise, you literally are just guessing, and you'll always just be sitting there and you'll just have this feeling like, I feel like this is not doing very well. I feel like I want to cut this, you know, but we don't want to make any of our decisions based on feeling. Like, we want to lean on the data. The data should be directing those decisions. And it's the worst feeling in the world to feel like, oh, something's kind of going well. Like, we're getting opportunities, but like, I have no idea where they're coming from. Then you have no confidence in any future decision. So if you're sitting here, you answered no, I don't have the tracking ability to break down my marketing by channel. If you take nothing else away from this webinar, I would say like, you've got to get that in place, and you want to get it in place as fast as you can, because each day that goes by where people are clicking on your site and they're filling out forms, you're flying blind as to where, you know, where they're finding you and how they're coming in. So we get our tracking in place, and then the question becomes, hey, how do we scale up marketing? And so we're gonna dive into the math, and I would encourage you too, as we're going through this, if you have numbers, ballpark numbers on hand from your own business, if you just know some of these numbers, the inputs, you can do these calculations just as we go through it. And then after the fact, I would encourage you to go get your real numbers and figure it out. But the first thing we want to look at is this ratio. And the ratio is the lifetime value of a customer. So what is a customer worth to your business versus what it costs you to acquire and bring in that customer. So we're going to start with lifetime value. And the way you calculate this is you're going to take your average job size and you're going to multiply that by your average gross margin. And so you can see the example here. If you do, kitchens and baths and your average job size is 100 grand and you have a 35% gross margin, then a customer is worth $35,000 to your business. It's not worth 100 grand because $65,000 is already out the door. You had to spend that on labor, materials. That's what it costs you to actually deliver on the project and complete the project. And then the 35 grand is left to basically cover sales and marketing and any overhead for the business. So the 35 grand is the number we want to get to, and that's where we're going to make some of our decisions based off of. So if you've never calculated this before, I would encourage you to do that and then ballpark it right now and work through it. As a bonus, if you want to get really fancy with this number, you could also look at your referral rate. So if you land 10 customers and 3 of them out of 10, 30% typically also send you another customer, then you could add on, an additional 30% to this LTV, knowing that you'll get that work. Like you get a customer and then 30% of the time that customer sends you another one. I don't like to use that because I feel like this number is a more conservative number. And then any referrals you get are like a bonus in terms of like doing a good job. And that'll just bring your natural like weighted average of what it costs you to bring in a customer down. So the simple way, average job size times average gross margin. Okay, so that's the first piece. And then the next piece is, okay, what does it cost me to acquire one of those customers that's worth 35,000? And this is where we typically see people only looking at marketing spend. Now we do want to be able to look at marketing spend and see what is that producing by channel. But if you want to get your all-in what it costs you to acquire a customer, it needs to be revenue, team revenue, sales and marketing, right? So it's going to be all of your advertising, it's going to be your website, but it's also any software like a CRM. It's any salaries or commissions for salespeople. So if you're the owner and you spend half your time selling, I would just chop your salary in half and throw that into this bucket. If you have an office manager that spends 20% of their time on like the email newsletter and some website work and some light marketing activities, like take 20% of their salary and add it in this bucket. We want to know all in, what does it cost us for sales and marketing to bring in customers? The easiest way to do this, you can just pull like your last year's P&L and just add up all of your sales and marketing and then divide that by the number of customers that you acquired. You could also run it for Q1. We're coming up on a half year. You could rerun it for a half year for this year. But let's walk through this example here. If you spent 250 grand on sales and marketing last year, and that was a combination of, a couple of partial salaries, any commissions on work, and then your marketing spend, and you landed 40 projects, 40 customers. Divide the two, 40 into 250, and you get $6,250. That's all in what it costs you to acquire. And then we have to go, okay, well, now that I know this number, what does that mean? Well, we know that when we spend $6,250, it brings us a customer, and that customer is worth $35,000 because we figured that out in our LTV. And so now we're looking at this ratio. And so when you look at that ratio of the 35,000 to 6,250, basically you spend $1 and it returns back 560. So you have a 5.6 to 1 return. And so if you're looking at your business and you're looking at your sales and marketing machine within your business and you're saying, hey, if I pour money into the sales and marketing machine, I expect a return to my business. Just like if I put $1 into the stock market, I expect a return. The stock market is just businesses. You have a business that you control and own and operate. So when you put money into that machine, you want to see a return back. And so In this example, you would have a put in $1, get 5.6 back. And we want to see multiples on this return because it's our own business. We have more control. We get to make all the decisions. It's a higher risk in the sense that it is one business in a local economy versus if you invest in like the S&P 500, you're spreading out your risk and you're picking all the biggest companies. So we want to see high multiples on our return for our sales and marketing. So we covered lifetime value, what it costs us to acquire, but then we can take one more step, which is, okay, after I spend that $6,250, when do I get paid back? Right? Because if you spend the $6,250, but it's going to take like 4 years to get, paid back, maybe that's not such a good thing. So we also want to have a little bit of a sense of how it's coming back to us. And so we look at this front end cash collected. And so it's really within that first 30 days of landing a customer, how much gross margin cash are we collecting? And so if you were to bill in that first 30 days, basically the, 20 grand, then you would have 7 grand in gross margin. And we want to look at that gross margin because again, if you take a $100,000 project and you're billing just a portion of it, right? 20%, 30%, whatever that is, we need to remember to also deduct all of the costs of goods sold because we know, hey, I really need to be looking at my gross margin dollars in that first 30 days. And so we're going to look at that and then compare it to our cost to acquire. And so we want to see this 1-to-1 or greater because if you break this down and you say, okay, I'm spending $6,250 on sales and marketing, and then I get $7,000 back within the first 30 days, and that's gross margin dollars, you've basically said, hey, I just returned back my investment. And so as I bill throughout the rest of the project, that's where I'm going to see my return. But if you can ramp that up even a little bit further, and I know there's some companies we work with that their deposits are more significant, maybe in that like 20 to 25% range, or sometimes even higher, then you can actually hit like 2-to-1 or even higher. And so in that scenario, you're spending $6,250 on sales and marketing, but you're getting 12,500. And so you're basically that first customer, they come in, they pay the deposit. They just covered all the sales and marketing that it took to bring them in and the next customer. And so it allows you to reinvest into your sales and marketing machine at a faster rate. And so this is more a look at cash flow and kind of that return back on your sales and marketing investment. For many people I talk to, they're like, as long as my LTV to cost to acquire is at a good ratio, like I know I'm going to complete the project and bill, I'm not super worried about it. But if you are trying to grow and scale more aggressively, especially if you don't want to take on loans or anything like that, then this is a great way where your business cash flow will basically allow you to like spin up the growth a lot quicker. I know that's a lot of math, and I'm going to go through just a few more metrics here because usually as I'm going through all this, people have questions. They go, well, what else do you track and what are kind of these key metrics? Is there anything else important? We're not going to do a deep dive on all of these metrics, especially the ones in the middle. We've already covered some of these. But if you're saying, hey, I'm kind of looking at my tracking system in more detail now for the first time, where I've looked at this before, but I've never really got a system in place. If you have these things in place, you'll be able to make tons of great decisions. So on the left, we already covered this one, which is we want to see traffic, leads, meetings, and customers, and where did they come from, right? What was the marketing channel? That's what I mean by source. We just covered the right side. We covered lifetime value. What's a customer worth to your business? It's going to be unique to you. Average project size times your average gross margin. What does it cost you to acquire one of those customers? And then we can also break that down by source and then front-end cash collected. Then if we look at the middle, if you want to start breaking down your sales conversion rates as well, We can look at booking rate, which the way we define that is, hey, I had 100 people come to my website and fill out some sort of form. It could have been a contact us form. It could have been subscribing to your newsletter. It could have been downloading a guide. However you captured their information, we call that just like a raw lead. And then what percentage of those actually book a call? And you basically get on a call to see if it's a good fit. That would be like a pre-qualification call. So if you had 30 people out of those 100, you'd have a 30% booking rate. Then how many people show up for that? Especially if you're using like Calendly or meeting links to book those calls. Hey, I had 10 calls and 8 people showed up. You'd have an 80% show rate. And then when I get somebody on a call, how many people do I book that in-person meeting with? I've said, yep, this is the right project, the right area. They've got the appropriate budget. Let's move them into an in-person meeting. And then how many move into design, how many move into construction from there. So you want to be able to map those conversion rates all the way down and then have a good grasp on your average job size. And so if you're able to see all of this, then your marketing and sales becomes a lot more just like adding, subtracting, dividing, and doing some simple math to kind of look at the forecast. But you can say, hey, if I get 100 leads in the top, 30 of them book a meeting, 20 of those move to a first in-person appointment, and then out of those 20, we typically sign 10 into design and 9 out of 10 sign into construction. And then you go, okay, great. For every 100 leads, I sign 9 customers. And so you want to be able to break it down that way so that you can actually forecast ahead, and then you can start to break down, hey, which of my marketing channels do I want to increase, so that if I want to go from 9 projects to 12 projects, I know, oh, I just need to make these changes way up at the top, and everything will kind of flow down from there. So let's walk through a real example, and I'll use one of our clients because we have their numbers. But how do we figure this out? How do we kind of run through this? So you probably have a project deposit percentage. For these guys, it's 15%. We know their total sales and marketing was 143,700, and they signed 24 customers. And we're using last year's data. We also know they did 6.8 million in revenue. And so we can take that number and we can take 6.8 and divide it by the 24 customers they signed. And we can go, okay, we know their average project size. It's 283,000. Then we need to multiply it by their gross margin to get what a customer is worth to them. So they have a 34% gross margin. So a customer is worth 96,000 and some change to this business. So again, if you're tracking along, looking at your numbers, you can take, your revenue from last year, divide it by the number of customers you signed. That'll give you an average project size. Average project size times your gross margin. That'll give you what is a customer worth to me. You can go back multiple years, although I would encourage you to keep the range tight, because if you go back too far, there's a good chance you've raised your pricing, you're targeting different projects now. So a 1-year span, a 2-year span is usually pretty good. Sometimes you want to go back maybe another year if you haven't made a lot of those changes. And to get that front end cash collected, I had like all of those sticky note reveals on the past slide. It's really actually a pretty simple one. You just take your lifetime value, which you've already calculated, what a customer is worth to you, and just multiply it by your project deposit percentage. Like, what percentage of a project do you typically collect in the first 30 days? And that'll give you your gross margin cash collected up front. So for them, it was 14,459. And then for them, again, we knew their total sales and marketing expenses, 143 and some change. They signed 24 customers. So it's about $6,000 for them to acquire a customer. So kind of clear the deck a little bit, and let's look at the left side of the screen. They had a lifetime value of 96,000. It cost them 6,000. So they have a 16-to-1 ratio there, which is great, right? The target is like 3-to-1 is like the minimum. 5-to-1 is better. And then as you hit like 10-to-1 and above, you're in an awesome spot, right? They put in $6,000, they get $96,000 back in terms of their investment. that's a great trade. You would do that as much as you can. Over on the right, we looked at the front end cash collected, which is that 14 grand and change, which they collect up front. And again, it costs them 6. So they have over a 2-to-1 ratio there, meaning they put 6 in, and then within 30 days of signing a customer, they get more than double that back. So it allows them to keep recycling that 6 if they want to. So this is a setup in which they're above the target in both instances. And so if you're seeing this, then you go, great, like, what do I do? I've got these 2 big green lights in front of me. And so then we would say, okay, well, let's go look at the marketing channels. And this is why, I said, hey, if you don't have the tracking in place and you don't know what's producing, it's really tough to make any decisions. And so the simple answer, increase the things that are working well. We really want to make it as simple as possible. And so in this example, we have some numbers. They spent about 14 grand on Google Ads, and we know that returned back about 558,000 in revenue. 184 of that was gross margin. So that was like a 13x there. We also know, if you're just down to that last bullet, that they spent about 51 grand on organic content and SEO, and that returned back 191 in gross margin, so 3.7. So still above that 3-to-1. But if you're just saying, hey, I want to scale up and I want an easy answer, like 3 or 4x your Google ads, right? They were spending 14 grand, triple it, and then measure it and see if it still holds. And if you can get another, $1 million plus out of tripling your Google ads, we know the ratio is really good. The return on this channel is really strong. And honestly, with Google ads, you can hit edit, change the budget, hit save. And so from a time perspective too, it's going to be a low time. On the organic side, you would say, hey, we're still getting a good return here, but maybe we'll just keep doing what we're doing here. And maybe those compounding results of SEO and content, because we know that's a longer play. Let's measure it again in year 2 and see if that return starts to go up because we get some compounding efforts. Then we might spend more there. But for now, the easy answer is let's spend more on Google ads. So that's just like a real example breakdown of how you can take real numbers, figure out your average project size, what's a customer worth to you, what does it cost you to bring one in, and then stack up your marketing channels and just evaluate them that way and say, you know what, we want to grow this year. We see this channel as the best. Let's just increase that one channel in a big way and make sure we still see a really nice return on that. And we'll let it run, and then we'll check the data again. We'll rerun the math. So if you're sitting here and you're going, okay, some of this sounds good. I want to be able to get this put in place. The first thing is you've got to install the technology. If you don't do this, you won't be able to do any of these other decisions. You won't have the data, you won't have the tracking. So just get it done. Either you do it, assign it to a team member, have them put it in place, do a little bit of research, pick a software that you can install on your website, and make sure you can get the tracking in place. From there, you're just going to have the reports built out so that you can see traffic, leads, meetings, customers. Again, keep it simple. You can break all of these down typically 2 or 3 more times to get more granular, but at the beginning, we really don't need to. We just need to see when you sign some deals or when you book those in-person appointments with good qualified opportunities, what was the marketing channel? Where did it come from? What produced that? So that you can start to redirect more of your time, energy, dollars, investment to those things. And then you can make your decisions based on real numbers. And I'm emphasizing getting the tracking in place multiple times for a reason, because I know that feeling of not having all the data and you're just kind of frozen there. You don't know what to do. You think something's working. You're kind of like, yeah, I've got a sense of it, but it's not set in stone. And so you never end up having, like, I never had the confidence to really like double or triple a budget in a certain area because I didn't have the data. And once I got the data in place, I was like, okay, now I can do this. And then you do double it and you go, wow, I wish I would have done this a long time ago, but I didn't even know that that thing was working. And then as a follow-on to that, I would encourage you to calculate what a customer is worth to you. It's a simple step, but it'll give you a lot of clarity, which is, hey, average project size times average gross margin. What is a customer really worth to my business? And what am I willing to spend to acquire a customer, right? If you do $1 million projects and you have a 20% gross margin, a customer's worth $200,000 to your business. Like, are you willing to spend 30 grand to get one of those customers? That might sound crazy to you. I know I talk to people all the time, and they're like, I didn't spend 30 grand on all of my marketing. You wouldn't spend 30 grand to get $1 million project that's worth $200,000 to your business. Like I would do that as much as I could. And so it just gives you a lot of clarity. And then you can decide, hey, okay, 200 grand is what it's worth to me. What's the most that I would want to spend to acquire a customer where it's like it's worth it to do that project and I still get a nice return into my business? That number might be 30, 40, 50. It might be 20. And you'll have to kind of establish that for you. But then it gives you more peace of mind as you're spending and investing into your marketing channels to be a little more patient. Because you might say, yeah, I could spend 3 grand a month for 7 months, and I just need to see a few good opportunities booking meetings because I know, hey, I'm going to close 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 of those. So I'm okay continuing to spend as long as I can see some of those leading indicators. So I'd encourage you to run these two numbers and think about what is maybe the max that you would want to spend to acquire one of your average customers. And with that, we'll definitely open it up to Q&A. But just for your community, we also offer a free framework call. So for us, you start with a discovery call. If you scan the code, you can hop on our calendar. And then we typically charge $197 to take you through a deep dive audit of your website. We'll run you through our entire framework, which is our attract, convert, nurture, measure methodology that we follow. And you'll basically walk out of that knowing, hey, this is what's going well. I'm missing these pieces. This is how I can improve. If you want to talk to us about working together, we're happy to do that. Or you can still go through the process and just take the learnings and implement them yourself. So that's what I got for you today, and I'd love to tackle any questions that you guys have as well.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Spencer. Looks like we had one from Jeff. He said, "What if it is longer than 30 days?" I think
What if what is longer than 30 days?
good question. I think it might have been back on the front end cash collector.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was assuming that as well. I think so it's okay if you don't get that return in the first 30 days. That's just a really helpful number to know that if you are getting that cash back in 30 days, like you're in a great spot, right? That means you invested and then you recoup that cost really quickly so that you can go either redeploy it and spend it again, or do something else with it. But if you land that project and you're like, great, I just spent, 20 grand acquiring this customer that's worth 200 grand, but it's $1 million project and it's going to take 18 months and you're going to get that back. Like, again, 20 grand to get 200, that's a 10-to-1 return. Like, would you wait 18 months to get that full return? Like, absolutely, right? It's just a good indicator to check in on your cash flow. And if cash flow isn't an issue, then you may say like I'm not worried about front end cash collected. Like I'd rather focus on like which of my marketing channels is working, and so it can just be a nice way to evaluate where you should put your efforts in. But cash is tight, then you might say, can we increase our average deposit size? Can we increase what a customer is worth to us? But if that's not an issue, then I would say just don't focus on it right now. It's not a priority.
Looks like Jeff posted a follow-up there. Often our lead to contract signed is 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks. This helps.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, if hey, this month I got 50 leads, and then I know it's going to be 2 more months until they close, right? And the ones that are qualified, then you also can start to use that as a forecasting tool. So it's great that you already track that.
Yeah. Looks like Derek here asks, for someone who has not only been online who has not been online before and just started the trail of starting a website, how would one calculate what they should spend on marketing and where?
Yeah, good question. It'll all depend on the size of your current business and your growth goals, right? So if you're, hey, I'm just building a website and I just want to have an online presence and I don't really need to grow, then like that's going to be a very different marketing budget. Or if you're like, hey, I'm at 2 million, I'm trying to double in the next, year or two, different answer. I'll tell you that the typical like industry standards that get thrown out there are like 2 to 5% of revenue spent on marketing. I It's a good place to start. If you look at the companies that are 20 million, they're spending like 8 to 12% on marketing. And so you always think about that and you go, well, I'll spend that much when I get there. But it's also like, will you get there if you don't spend that much? And so that's where doing this exercise is really helpful because you can look at what a customer is actually worth to your business and what you're willing to spend to get one of those. And so that can help figure out like, oh, okay, you're at 3 million trying to go to 4. And if you need 4 more projects and I can spend up to 10 or $15,000 to acquire each customer, then you can do the 4 times, 10 grand or 15 and kind of get a ballpark too, as to what you're willing to spend to hit those growth goals. But if you're just looking for a place to start, you've never really spent a lot in marketing, the like 2 to 5% of revenue is just a good benchmark to pick a starting place. But it'll also depend on, your gross margin, your current overhead, how much cash flow you have, and you may say, oh, 5% is like crazy. I could never do that. Or you might say like, awesome, I'm ready to grow. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, I see a lot of people who, they think just because they're newer, like, I'm just going to create some sort of a website or not have a website up front. Like, I mean, I think it's so important that if you really want to be a successful business, like you need to invest in marketing, especially up front. That's the face of your company. It's where you're going to drive all of your leads to. Like, you've got to have that in place. And again, I see a lot of people who think, oh, well, I can go figure out this whole Google Ads thing and this whole Facebook thing. Like, I can tell you firsthand, like I also said that, I put a bunch of money into it and then I forgot. And then like, I look back at it like a month or two later, I'm like, crap, I blew through my budget and I literally had nothing to show for it. Like, I think if you really want to do it well, like this is where I highly recommend people to find a marketing agency, find a partner like Spencer and his team who really understand this stuff. Like you're not only going to save a lot of time, but also you're going to end up saving money in the long run, getting these ads set up the right way, getting your system set up, being able to track all of this. Like this is so important because like it helps you make those data-driven decisions versus just feeling like you continue to throw money at something. Like I can promise you, probably almost all of Spencer's clients don't feel like they're just throwing money down this hole and hoping and wishing and praying that something bites. Like because they have the data, they're able to understand where it's going versus when you don't understand all of the processes that it takes to be successful at this, it can be a very, very expensive endeavor that really nets you nothing, or just not what it could. So, that's kind of my 2 cents here on the importance of making sure that you've got the right, processes in place and the right people that are actually doing it. It's just not feasible for many small, construction companies to hire their own marketing people because it is so many different skill sets to be successful. That's where like going through somebody like Builder Funnel, like the value of their team is that they have a large team and they've got a bunch of people who have experience in each of these different areas from websites, from designs, from content creation, from SEO to the ads, and every ad platform is its own set of experience. So like, I highly encourage people to really, think about how they might be able to find a partner instead of just trying to go at it alone because, you're just going to have so much better results and you're going to get where you want to go so much faster.
Yeah, and Eric, it was at your conference in January, and I did kind of just a light poll of like, how many of you have the tracking in place to see traffic leads, and customers by channel? And I want to say it was like 15 to 20% of the room. And so that's why I always emphasize that as like step number one is just like get the tracking in place so you can make those data-driven decisions. Because otherwise you just keep guessing, keep guessing. You'll kind of do the same marketing budget every year and you'll just try new things and you'll never know if it actually worked or not. So just like got to get it in place.
All right, so we got another question here. So what if the job size changes dramatically from customer to customer, from 80K to 2 million? I'm scared my numbers will be skewed.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we just hosted a workshop here where we were running through a couple companies, and they did like custom homes, and then they also did remodeling. Another one they did remodeling, but they also had handyman. If you do have pretty distinct offerings like that, then I would run them separately. So I'd run like, hey, if it's 2 million, if those are like custom homes, or like whole home, huge additions, whatever that bucket is, I would see if you can break it out. Like, what's a customer worth to me there? And then, oh, what's kind of a standard remodeling project that's like 80 to 200 or whatever it is. And then you'll basically have two cohorts of like these customers are worth X, these customers are worth Y. And then again, you're still going to look at your marketing channels and go, well, where do these ones come from, and where do these ones come from? And you can still look at the expenditure and what it costs them to bring in. So you're absolutely right that things will skew, especially this industry, right? You could do 10 million on 5 projects. So like one project could skew everything else. So if you have like a cohort of clients where like 90% of them fall in this range, and then we always have this like one big anchor project, just throw the anchor project out and don't use it. And so take them out of the customer count, so you're not counting them on the bottom side, but then take them out of the average for the revenue as well. And that way, like if you still just like come across those anchor clients and they just seem to be random, or it's from a referral and you're like it's not marketing that's producing those, then it's better to exclude it and be more conservative. So hopefully that gives you a couple of ideas on how to work through that. But I always skew on being more conservative where you can. So if it is the case where you have some outliers, like throw them out.
Yeah. Now, follow up here is how do you break it down from the capturing leads moment on the website?
Sure. Yeah. You would probably on your contact form or in your CRM, you would want to create a little drop down or a property. So you could, on the contact form, an easy way would be like, what project are you interested in? And then it'd be custom home, addition, kitchen, bath. So that way, when you have your database of 500 leads, you can see, oh, 20% of them were custom home and 80% of them were remodeling projects. If you don't include it on the contact form, you just want to make sure it's part of that like pre-qualification call, right? Like, hey, what's the project we're talking about today? Cool. Oh, custom home. Awesome. And then you would tag it. Same. You just have a property with a drop down and you tag it in your CRM. And that way you can start dividing up your lead flow by basically area of interest of project type.
Yeah. All
But
right.
again, like all these things we're talking about are like data. So you have to just they're not super advanced, right? But it does require a process and a checkbox for that or a drop down so that you can actually like at the end of the year go, okay, let me slice and dice the data now. But if you didn't do anything all year, then you just don't have that information.
Yeah. So I got another question here from Nigel. So, do you or your team work with people on go high level accounts?
Good question. Right now we don't. Yeah. So if you have Go High Level and you're like, I love it, we're probably just not the best partner right now. If you're open to switching, right now all of our clients are on HubSpot. We've decided like, hey, there's always going to be a million different software providers. We really don't want to get into a situation where you're coming in with software and we're kind of unfamiliar with it, then we can't, you're spending a lot of time either having us learning or we're not charging you extra to learn, but then we're just like spinning our wheels and everything takes longer and it's a little bit clunky. So, yeah, if you're pretty tied to the program, I'd say we're just not a good fit. If you're open to switching, then worth a conversation.
He also said, thanks for the book. It's a good read, by the way. People should check it out. It's one of my Bibles.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I got
I assume, Nigel, you got that at JobTread Connect there. Yeah.
cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I think we're coming up close to the top of the hour here. Really appreciate everything you've shared, Spencer. Kind of, going through this very technical walkthrough on how people should be thinking about, their ROI, where they should be spending money, how to make those decisions. I mean, often, again, it's you can spend a whole lot of money on marketing, and so I think having this framework that you've shared sort of helps people make, a little bit better decisions and really understanding where and how they should be investing in marketing. So, again, everyone, if you want to learn more, I highly encourage you to connect with Spencer. They're in our marketplace. You can reach out through there. Obviously, you've got this QR code here, but definitely well worth your time. They're some of the best in the industry. So, please do again take the time to learn and invest in marketing. This is the top of the funnel. This is the thing that will make or break your year. It'll help you hit your goals. You got to basically keep filling that funnel though. You got to get those leads wherever they come from, whether it's organic, whether it's paid, whether it's referrals, word of mouth. Just never take your eye off that ball and make sure you're investing in marketing to drive your future business. Thank you all.